It started with a short walk home. 5 minutes, just a few blocks, but Jill Meagher never made it. Her disappearance sparked a nationwide search and a viral movement for women's safety. And a horrifying discovery exposed just how close a predator had been all along. This is the case of Jill Meagher. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. My name's Cachelle. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. Each week I try my absolute best to teach you about a true crime case that hopefully you have never heard of. Trigger warnings for today's case are very heavy. They include rape, sexual assault, young victims and kidnapping. So if any of those are things you don't want to listen to today, that's absolutely fine. Hopefully I'll see you for another case. Content warning, as always, strong language. Let's get into it. This is the case of Jill Meagher. Gillian, or Jill Meagher, was born on October 30th, 1982, on Ireland's east coast. She was the youngest of 3 children and was raised in a very close-knit family. Her father George worked in telecommunications, a job that would later take them on the other side of the world. She was described as warm, sharp, funny, and the kind of person that everyone just instantly liked. When Jill was still very young, the family relocated to Australia because of George's work. The family thrived in Australia, and so did Jill especially, but in the mid-1990s they returned back to Ireland. The return to Ireland, she said, reconnected her with her roots, but her heart, part of her heart, was still in Australia. She absolutely loved being there and she really missed it. She studied at the University College in Dublin, and she studied arts and media while she was there. She was an intelligent, positive, bubbly person with a quick wit and deep empathy. It was there where she would meet her future husband, Tom Meagher. The pair of them fell head over heels in love with each other, and from that point on they never could imagine their life without the other person in it. And in 2008 they married. The couple ended up moving to Melbourne in Australia in 2009. They wanted a fresh start and they wanted somewhere beautiful to raise a family one day. I also think her parents were back living in Australia at this point as well. Jill quickly found work as a broadcast assistant, I believe at ABC Radio. She was very well liked at her job and had lots of friends there. She said they were more like friends than co-workers and colleagues. She and Tom ended up moving to the Brusnick area. It's just north of the city, and they were very settled. They were looking forward to planning their future together. But unfortunately, in September of 2012, it would take a drastic turn. On Friday the 21st of September in 2012, Jill went out with her colleagues for some after work drinks, which was common. They used to do this quite a lot. Tom had actually gone to bed before Jill had left the bar. This was around 1:30 a.m. and Jill was intending to walk home. It was just over half a mile to get home. Jill and her co-worker walked part of the way together, and then her co-worker was saying, "Oh, do you want me to just drop you home?" But Jill was like, "I'm so close to home, it's senseless, it's fine, you go ahead." But unfortunately, Jill would never make it home. Tom woke up a few hours later and noticed Jill wasn't there. He called her phone straight away and there was no answer, and then he kind of freaked out. So he stayed awake for hours just kind of waiting for her to come through the door, and was ringing her phone in between this as well, still with no answer. Around 4 a.m. he actually left the home and started walking up and down where she should have been, or where she would have walked home, and the bar she was at, just trying to spot her anywhere. So by 9 a.m. she still wasn't home, and by midday the police were now aware of Jill's disappearance. At this point they think Jill's phone may have actually run out of battery because it's going straight to voicemail now. Very quickly everyone was involved in this case. Friends, family, they'd all kind of joined together and started making social media posts, taking posters out into town, and just trying to make as many people as possible aware of Jill and that she was missing. Everyone knew that something was very, very wrong. This was not in Jill's character at all to ever do something like this. Jill's disappearance really shook Melbourne. She was just walking home, which is one of the hashtags that we've used in more recent times. She was just walking home. She wasn't the type to just vanish. She'd been out drinking, but she wasn't drunk by any stretch, and there was no signs of her being distressed at all. All of the colleagues that were there that night were interviewed, and none of them really had much information, but it became very clear that whatever happened to Jill happened to her on her walk home. But nobody saw anything. The route that she would have taken home was checked several times. There was no evidence of a struggle. There was no clues left behind. There was just nothing. Tom, of course, was the first person they looked into as the boyfriend, as it's standard practice, I believe now. And he was cleared. He was immediately cleared. 3 days after Jill had first been reported missing, her handbag was found on the street, and it was actually found in a street that had already been searched. The finding immediately changed the nature of the investigation from a missing person to a homicide, because it appeared that whoever had dumped this bag here was trying to ditch evidence. So police of course began scouring CCTV for whoever had dumped this bag, and they also began searching CCTV for the night that of course Jill went missing, and they found something. So Jill was captured walking alone and then being approached by a man in a blue hoodie. The man was stood outside this shop for quite a while, and then Jill appears, he strikes up a conversation with her, and then she walks out of frame and he walks with her, continuing this conversation out of frame. They appear to have a conversation, but you can kind of see from her body language that she looks quite uncomfortable. It seems obvious that she didn't know this man. He was then seen following her down a side street, and this clip freaks me out because it is genuinely every woman's worst fear. So you see Jill walking by herself. She looks slightly more calm because she's on her own, and she's just trying to walk home. But then a few moments later, which is the gut-wrenching part of this video, you see the man in the blue hoodie running after her. I can't. This was the last time Jill was seen alive, and this was around 1:42 a.m. The footage was released to the public, and a media frenzy sparked. It is genuinely haunting footage. I think it's one of the worst bits of footage that I have ever seen, because you can just, as a woman, you can kind of imagine that happening, and you can imagine how she felt. It's just awful. So after this was released to the public, thousands and thousands of people joined the search, and social media campaigns for Jill's return exploded. Women across the city admitted that they were scared. So after all these appeals and everything on the news, a man rings the police and goes to the police station and says he is the one that put the bag on the street. He told police that he'd come across the bag on the street a few days prior and picked it up and took it home because he thought someone had lost their bag and he wanted to try and return it to them. Maybe. So he kept this bag for a few days trying to locate, apparently, the owner. He then saw the news that this woman was missing. He then knew he had her bag. He shit himself and returned the bag to where he found it. But now police have Jill's possessions back, which, brilliant. The guy with the bag is just a bit strange. He's not really involved. It's just a bit weird. But now they have Jill's stuff. They have her phone. So that's a really good start. So they go for Jill's phone records, and they find that the phone is active until around 4 a.m. And around 4 a.m. her phone is heading up the motorway, which it probably shouldn't have been. The police are now start searching ANPR cameras for who was heading in that direction at that exact spot at the exact time, and every single one of those cars are now all suspects. However, they looked at the drivers of all of the cars, and only one of them fit for what they were looking for. And the person who owned this car, who they identified, was Adrian Ernest Bailey. He was a 41-year-old man with a long, violent criminal history and a violent sexual criminal history, all of course towards women. What wasn't known to the public at the time was that Adrian had a string of conviction, including multiple rapes. When he was 18 years old, he raped his 16-year-old sister's friend. The following year, he attempted to rape 2 more girls and then threatened to kill them. In 2002, he was jailed for 12 separate cases of rape on 5 sex workers. He was jailed for 11 years but only served 8. He was actually on parole at the time that Jill went missing, and he should have never have been allowed to be walking the streets like that. Police, of course, went and arrested him immediately on suspicion of murder. When police questioned him, he of course went to, "I don't know who she is, I've never met her, I don't know what you're talking about." No. But whilst he was being questioned, his home was searched and they found the blue hoodie, and inside they found a smashed up SIM card. So he was eventually confronted with the evidence that was mounting against him, such as the CCTV, the ANPR cameras, the smashed SIM card, the fact that Jill's phone was exactly where his phone was, exactly the same time, going up the motorway, and he broke down, he confessed everything. He actually even said, "I shouldn't have been let out of jail the last time." And I just don't know what happens in terms of when someone's coming up for their release. Do they not have to have some kind of, do they not have check-ins, psychological evaluations, check what a danger they are to society and things like this? Or do they just go, bye? what happens? Like, why was he out? He said he had been out drinking that night with his friends and his girlfriend, and him and his girlfriend got into an argument. How he's got a girlfriend, I don't know. So he's fuming about this argument he's had, so he just keeps getting drunker and drunker. At the end of the night, everyone goes their separate ways, but he doesn't want to go home yet because he doesn't want to go home to his girlfriend because he's wound himself up and he's still annoyed. He then bumps into Jill, starts chatting to her. She said she was friendly at first, but eventually switches because she's had enough of this fucking weirdo talking to her, which is well within her right. You are not entitled to anyone's time, including this woman's. You're not entitled to anyone being nice to you. Because he's upset that she's been rude to him, he then runs after her, drags her into an alleyway, rapes her, and strangles her to death. I don't really have anything to add to that other than what the fuck. He then got into his car, took her with him, and drove around, I think it's about 50 miles, and buried her in a shallow grave. He then went and got his car deep cleaned and got all 4 of his tyres changed. On September 27th, just 6 days after Jill was reported missing, they found her body, and Tom was there when they recovered her. Adrian was charged with her rape and murder. During the trial in 2013, it emerged that Jill had refused his advances and tried to fight him off and walk away, but Adrian overpowered her, and this is when he dragged her into that alley. The court heard that he'd been prowling the streets that night, actively looking for a victim, and Adrian ended up pleading guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison with a non-parole period of 35 years, but many felt that wasn't enough. This was a man that was already known to the system. He was very well known in the system, but he'd still been allowed to walk the streets that night. Jill's murder didn't just devastate her family, it completely enraged the nation. Tens of thousands of women and men marched through Melbourne in a Reclaim the Night rally. Her case became a symbol for the broader issue of violence against women, especially violence by repeat offenders. It became a spontaneous act of mourning and protest. People held candles, signs, flowers, and they marched the path that Jill would have walked home. Tom, of course, was absolutely shattered, but he was determined and began speaking out. He condemned the justice system's failure to monitor known predators and warned against a culture that normalised male violence. Jill's murder didn't just reclaim the night. It reminded Australia that violence doesn't just lurk in dark alleys, and safety shouldn't be a privilege granted by proximity to others. Women march for Jill, but not just for Jill. They march for their daughters, their friends, their mothers, their sisters, and every woman who's felt like they needed to have their keys between their fists while walking home. Jill became much more than a headline. She became a call for change. And that is the end of today's case. And it's a horrible story, to be honest. It's really horrible what happened. It's horrible that systems can fail that miserably, and that someone that dangerous and disgusting can just be out and about and you could just run into them like Jill did. It's horrifying, but I think it's really powerful what people did with it. And I always say this, but when you can take something so horrible and turn it into something positive and try and prevent things like that happening to anyone else, I think it's really, really beautiful. God, yeah, sorry to end on a proper downer. Oh my god, I haven't been doing positive thoughts. I haven't done positive thoughts for the last 3 videos. Oh my god, I normally always do a positive thought. Shit, okay, I need a positive thought. Oh, god, I don't have one. Positive thought for today is probably that I've done my filming. Thought at the moment is that I've got book club very soon. I have joined a book club and we've got our first meeting very soon, and I'm very much looking forward to that. So I will update you on how it goes and if everyone's nice, which I'm sure they will be. But that's my positive thought of the day. I will see you next week, but until then, make good choices, please stay safe, look after each other, stay spooky, not stupid, love you, bye. What is wrong with them? What is wrong with them? Why are they like that? I don't understand. Why take me on a date then? What are you doing? Why? I just don't understand. Irritating men, I just want to... It's just how close? Harry still... In the top trot, just didn't. He condemned the justice system. Oh.